So, one of the most disturbing offsets of anxiety is this idea of what we call existential thoughts. Questions like, is this world real? Am I dead? What's going on? How do I know if anything's real? What's the point of existence? What is existence? These very high level thoughts, these high level thinking that people experience when they're experiencing anxiety, and it is absolutely terrifying. And what I want to talk about in this video is, why does it happen? Why is it an offset of anxiety? And more importantly, how to make it go away once and for all. So pay attention. So I remember when I was struggling with anxiety, I was getting daily panic attacks. I was getting these physical symptoms that made me rush to the doctor every day. I was experiencing these intrusive thoughts that were convincing me that I was going crazy, but I was also feeling these feelings of unreality, what we call derealization, depersonalization. And I remember when I was struggling with anxiety, I would start thinking about things about life and it would absolutely terrify me. I could give myself a panic attack. One of the things I used to think about is how we're on this spinning rock that's going thousands of miles an hour and we don't know why we're here. And I'm like, I remember thinking to myself, why aren't we all just holding each other, like crying, trying to figure out why we're here? And what was happening is that I was experiencing anxiety. And so let me explain what's happening. When people are experiencing anxiety, what happens is that they often have this offset of anxiety, what we call derealization, depersonalization. Now, derealization is this feeling of unreality where it feels like this whole world is fake. You like look at your hands and you're like, am I real? You know, you look in the mirror and it just doesn't make sense. It's actually a pretty bizarre symptom, but it's an offset of anxiety. Same with depersonalization. It's this feeling almost like this out-of-body experience. And it's actually a safety response that your brain has created to essentially protect you from trauma. And so what happens is that when you start experiencing these things, and if you were like me, if you're a deep thinker, you start thinking about these major philosophical questions like, what's the point of existence? Why am I here? What's the meaning of life? Who am I? And these thoughts, while struggling with anxiety, can actually lead individuals to a very dark conclusion. And I really want to talk about why that happens, because existential thoughts in itself can actually really scare people, but the main focus should actually be on overcoming anxiety. And what happens is people go down this dark path trying to figure out what's the point of all this, coming up with conclusions that they think themselves they're coming up with, but it's actually not. It's just because they're in this fight or flight state, they don't really understand, like they come to this conclusion that's kind of dark because it's about survival. And instead, if they can overcome the anxiety, if they can focus on the anxiety, what happens is that they can think about these questions from a different perspective. So why does this happen? Well, like I mentioned, people that experience derealization, depersonalization really start thinking about these, because one of the major fears these individuals have is, well, am I real? Because the world just seems too fake, right? They'll be outside and it feels like, for me, it felt like there was a glass panel between me and the outside world when I was experiencing derealization. So it's natural to think about, okay, well, is this real? Am I real? What is reality? And what happens is that combined with an overactive mind, which is exactly what people who struggle with anxiety struggle with, leads to deeper questions. It's more thought-provoking. Okay, well, how do I know if anything's real? And what happens is that people don't recognize that an overactive mind is actually a symptom of anxiety. It's not because they're trying to figure something out, but is that it's actually an overactive mind. Now, the third part of it is really the idea that these individuals are very deep thinkers. This is something that they naturally contemplate. These are individuals that that think about philosophy, that may even think about higher level scientific things like quantum mechanics or something like that. So the main thing to understand really is that these existential thoughts in itself are actually a symptom of anxiety. Here's what I mean. When you're experiencing this fight or flight response, the focus really isn't on what's the meaning of life. The point is to run away from a threat. And the idea is either to run away or to fight a threat. everything's about survival. So when you're in this survival state, thinking about these existential thoughts, having these existential thoughts don't really, it's going to lead you to a dark path. See, if you think about it, anxiety is a fight or flight response, right? Everything you're experiencing, from the physical symptoms, the feelings of unreality, the intrusive thoughts, it's all an offset of a fight or flight response. Its main goal is to protect you, to keep you alive. So it's going to make you think about things in a scary way, right? You want to avoid threats, right? Because if you die, death in itself is already an uncomfortable conversation. When you're in a fight or flight response, it can feel like a very dark, scary place. And so what happens is that you end up coming up with conclusions based on that fight or flight response, not because it's an actual conclusion that you've made. Now, I know this concept is a little bit hard to grasp, and it was actually one of the reasons why I was unsure if I even wanted to create a video like this. But if you can understand that existential thoughts that you're having is also an offset of anxiety, what it will make you do is that it will make you focus on what matters, which is overcoming the anxiety. You can have these thoughts, you can contemplate, but you need to contemplate from a place not where everything is a survival response, not in this fight or flight response, but from a natural, neutral baseline perspective where you have the ability to have higher level thinking. So the first thing is really understanding that this is an offset of anxiety and really understanding the mechanics of anxiety. So if you're curious about how do you understand the mechanics of anxiety, how to really overcome this, I'll put a link down below. The link below essentially will show you step by step how to fully overcome. This is exactly what I did to fully overcome. This is exactly what I show my clients to fully overcome. I'm not hiding anything. There's no secret. There's no anything. I'm just giving it out to you for free because it was something that I wish I would have had when I was struggling. And I remember when I was struggling, I burned a hole in my pocket trying all these different unique medical things to try to make myself feel better. And by the end, I didn't really have anything. And so I wanted to give this report out for free because it would have really helped me during my struggle. And really, there should be no reason why we should be keeping a secret. We should be showing people how to fully overcome. So the link is down below. It's yours. Enjoy it. Now, the last thing I'm going to say is these existential thoughts, let them be there, but label them as anxiety. Label them right now as an offset of anxiety. What I tell individuals is put this stuff to the side for now. Don't even, yes, it's okay to think about these things, but recognize that the conclusions that you're coming up with aren't actually going to be the conclusions. What I mean is, right now, it's fine to think about these things to a degree because your mind's going to go there naturally, but don't let it disturb you too much. Focus on overcoming anxiety. Now, I want to tell you about the story that I had in the beginning where I felt like I was on this spinning rock going thousands of miles an hour, and I don't know why we're here. Now, I've fully overcome anxiety, and I still have the same thoughts. But here's the interesting thing. I actually don't come from a dark place. I don't come from this place of, why are we here? What's the meaning of life? There's no reason why we're here. I look at it as, wow, how amazing is this? We're on a spinning rock right now. Like, isn't it amazing that we're alive? How amazing, this is so beautiful. What a time to be alive, And it's just such an incredible thought process. What's interesting though is that I'm the same Shawn, right? I'm the Shawn that was thinking, oh my God, why are we here? I don't understand. What's the point of existence? And the same Shawn is thinking, wow, I'm so glad to be alive. What a blessing this is. So what's changed? What changed really was the state. That was the only thing that changed because I'm the same person. I was coming from a place of survival. I was coming from this fight or flight response. I was coming from a state where everything was a threat. Now that I've kind of came back to baseline, my nerves have desensitized. I don't have the same conclusions. So what I always say is put these thoughts to the side right now, focus on overcoming, and then when you start overcoming, when you get better, you'll look at it in a different way. Now, if you really want to know more about how to overcome, you really want to know more success stories, what other people have thought about this topic who have actually recovered, I'll put a link down below to my private Facebook group. So in that group, I'm putting even more exclusive content than I'm now posting on any other social media platform. There's also individuals that I've personally helped that are actually also in the group that have fully overcome, that are helping others as well. Because if you've been struggling with this, you know how debilitating it is. And it's really suffering that's kind of unnecessary, to be honest with you. If you just understand what to do and stay consistent, you can overcome. So it's a great Facebook group. If you want to join, click the link down below. It's going to ask you 3 questions. It's very important that you answer those 3 questions to the best of your ability. We want people to join the group. But like I say, like I always say, I want to maintain the integrity of the group. I don't want this to be another forum where people end up story topping each other, scaring each other, this fear mongering, where it's a place where it's kind of toxic. We don't want that. We want this to be a place of people who are fully overcoming, who are actually going back, living their lives, enjoying the beautiful day, having these existential thoughts, but having it from a place of neutrality, of a place of higher level thinking, and really just enjoying their lives. They're not focused on quick fixes. They're not focused on coping. They're not focused on this being a lifelong sentence. So if that's you, hit the link down below, and I'll see you guys inside.